Thank you so much for joining us on Africa this morning. It is the 17th of November 2014. I'm BerylOoro. We have a lot lined up for you on the show this morning on Table Talk, on our Media Watch segment, and also in the bulletin. But first up, let's take a look at the headlines. Security. Concerned citizens give government a 14-day ultimatum on security or they take to the streets. Road carnage. World Remembrance Day for road carnage victims. What is NTSA doing to keep the roads safer? G20 protests. Protests against Tony Abbott's comments during G20 meeting. Thank you so much for joining us. We start off here in Kenya. The concerned citizens of Kenya have given the government an ultimatum of 14 days to take charge of the security situation in the country, or they will resort to mass action. They are calling for proper structural command in the National Police Service to guarantee smooth running of the country's security agencies.
Following the security challenges our country has witnessed for the last couple of months, Kenyans are still mourning the loss of lives from innocent Kenyans as well as police officers in the line of duty as witnessed in Baragoi, Lamu and the recent being Kapedo in Baringo County, where 21 officers lost their lives. There has been much blame game going on the recent incidences, and one pertinent question that remains is who is to blame for these security lapses. The Concerned Citizens of Kenya Chairman BerylOoro has asked the government to address the security leadership and different security bodies to streamline operation, hence come out with a proper policy on how to internally address wrangles.
We must make sure that there's a clear cut in the responsibilities of the National Police Service, headed by the Inspector General, and National Police Service Commission, headed by Mr. Kavolodi, and also the Independent Police Oversight Authority. This is where there is insecurity. In fact, insecurity starts in their offices. They are fighting.
Reports have also indicated that police officers are performing duties in terrain areas without proper equipment, as seen in Kapedo, and the CCK wants the police officers to be properly equipped with the latest equipment in curbing crime and proper remuneration.
There are better weapons to fight crimes. Today, the police are still using the analog communication walkie-talkies. We are way past that. These are things which make police officers to act very well. Proper guns, proper handcuffs, latest communication equipment, better remuneration.
The buck in handing the security lapses lies with the Inspector General of Police, and the CCK is asking institutions such as the Independent Police Oversight Authority to stop harassing the police and stick to its mandate, and let the Inspector General crack the whip to ensure sanity reigns in the National Police Service and the country. Police in the coastal area are also being faced with a heavy task of investigating the shooting of community leader Zakaria Mwinyi. Just a week after one of the fallen soldiers of the Kapedo attack was buried, 10 Isiolo victims of the bandit attack that happened along the Isiolo-Samburu border have also been buried. While in Baringo, 2 children have been killed in another raid 100 kilometers away from Kapedo, despite an ongoing army operation in the area.
Kenya marked the World Day of Remembrance for road traffic victims with a call for regulation into the chaos by the boda sector, where the number of accidents have shot up from 1% last year to 19%. Victims also used the day to ask for accommodating structures in buildings and in schools across the country.
A march in Nairobi to reflect on the number of lives lost on our roads. That number has slightly dropped this year compared to last year. thanks to the efforts by the Transport Ministry and the National Traffic and Safety Authority. Health Cabinet Secretary James Macharia joined in the commemoration today, confirming that the efforts from the Ministry of Transport have helped reduce the number of pedestrian deaths by 35% drop in deaths from crashes between January and November compared to the same period last year. But a different and alarming scenario has ensued in the boda sector. The number of deaths is alarming.
Especially when we are going back to school, you've seen these bodas carrying up to 5-6 children. That is criminal.
Victims of road accidents have for a long time cried foul of limited access to buildings and also restriction of attending particular schools for school-going children. They are now calling for a review, asking constructors to have them in mind when bringing up buildings.
These voices have not been properly articulated to ensure that we have proper rehabilitation of those who survive, to ensure that there is better recognition by governments and that our buildings are made in a manner that accommodates.
We should not be relegated to go to particular special schools. We can go to any school so long as we are willing and able to go there.
A campaign dubbed Tulia Ufike was also launched to encourage vigilance among drivers and pedestrians in the country.
First Lady Margaret Kenyatta has called on leaders in Kiambu to urgently address excessive consumption of alcohol and substance abuse that is exposing young people to HIV infection. The First Lady spoke at Miridhu Girls Secondary School grounds in Limuru, where she presented the 11th fully kitted mobile clinic under the Beyond Zero campaign to Kiambu County Government.
It was music and dance as residents awaited the official handing over of the mobile clinic to them. The First Lady officially opened the clinic, the 11th one to be distributed around the country. The First Lady urged county governments to use the fully kitted mobile clinics delivered under Beyond Zero initiative for the benefit of all Kenyans, mothers and children. She also spoke about the HIV scourge and what it affects it.
Alcohol has become an epidemic of significant proportions. It exposes young people to HIV infections, and for those on ARV treatment, adherence is simply not possible.
She encouraged Kiambu County leadership to mobilize resources in support of health initiatives targeting women and children. The First Lady also challenged the county governments to formulate and implement health strategic plans that ensure access to quality and affordable health care for Kenyans.
Today, Kiambu County becomes the 11th county to receive the fully kitted mobile clinic under the Beyond Zero campaign.
A collective agreement between the county government and the national government was signed as a sign of progressive work formula.
Of the mobile clinic to the governor, William Kabogo. Mpige makofi tena.
We'll now take a short break, but we'll be back with more stories from Africa in the international front. But before we take the break, let's take a look at the proverb of the day. start off on the West African front. A family who fled the northeastern Nigerian village of Chibok talk of their experiences after Boko Haram insurgents retook the village from where the group abducted some 200 schoolgirls 7 months ago. However, on Sunday, the Nigerian army indicated that it had retaken the town from the militants.
Pastor Enoch Mark and his family were among those who were caught up in the attack. They fled the village on Thursday after they saw soldiers retreating in the face of the attack and sought refuge in a town on the outskirts of capital Abuja. One of the pastor's daughter is among the missing 200 schoolgirls. He was at a hospital to treat his other daughter's snake bite when the attack took place.
When the attack started, I was hospitalizing my daughter in the hospital. Then we just hear gunshot all over. And the hospital is by the main road side. When I just went out, I see soldiers were just running with their vans. No, you cannot control yourself.
Boko Haram, which is trying to carve out a capulate in a religious mixed northern Nigeria, has stepped up its attack since it denied a ceasefire announced last month by the government. Chibok and surrounding areas of Borno State have also been regularly targeted by the militians since the April abductions, which sparked an international outcry. The Enochs adopted their daughter Julie after she lost her parents during a previous attack.
My mother was worried because I could not walk. We managed to get to the road. We saw some soldiers at a checkpoint, as if they were really brave. But when the sound of the gunshots got closer, they jumped into their vehicles and zoomed off, leaving us behind.
Mark Enoch's sons sustained injuries during the attack.
They are not Look at him. This is why he got some bruises.
I feel very bad about it because my ambition and my studies were disturbed because all these things that has happened has disturbed me, in fact, and all these people that were killed has made me scared.
The Nigerian army, aided by local hunters and civilian vigilantes, recaptured 2 towns south of Chibok after fierce fighting with the insurgents, pushing them farther north.
And moving to Australia, as world leaders concluded their 2-day summit in Brisbane, dozens of Aboriginal rights protesters marched through the city. The March 107 in the city was peaceful, although demonstrators were angered by comments by Prime Minister Tony Abbott describing Australia as desolate prior to British colonisation.
The G20 summit has become an annual gathering of protests of all manner of sizes and issues. The group has been enraged by the comments made by Prime Minister Tony Abbott about the nation's history and banned the Australian flag in protest. Their message to the G20 leaders was this.
I guess our message is the same to those leaders of those 20 nation states and the European Union, that they are responsible for the dispossession and the genocide and the bloodshed of Indigenous peoples and oppressed peoples around this globe.
The group then banned effigies of prominent Aboriginal leaders Warren Mundine, Neil Parson, Martin Langton to chants of sellouts. In the past week, the Parklands has been the staging point for a string of marches to coincide the World Leaders meeting in Brisbane. The Brisbane Aboriginal Sovereign Embassy has held a series of rallies in the Roma Street's Parklands, including one on Sunday, to highlight decolonization before profit.
And moving on to North America, the anguished parents of 43 students involved in an apparent massacre by corrupt police and thugs from drug gangs marched in the town of Tlapa in BerylOoro State for a 3rd consecutive day, demanding that some action be taken to return their children to them alive.
They were joined by some students from the rural school in Ayotzinapa, as well as supporters and relatives. Alfonso Rodriguez, the father of Christian Rodriguez, one of the missing 43 students, spoke of his son tenderly before demanding that the government return him alive.
al gobierno que aparezca.
I demand that the government make the 43 students appear because the police took them, and I don't know how they're going to do it. But they are going to bring me my son alive with the 43 students because they took them alive, and we want them alive.
Así de fácil.
Con ese corazón de un Cristo.
Anger has intensified in Mexico since Attorney General Jesus Murillo said last week that evidence suggests that the 43 missing trainee teachers were murdered by gangsters, incinerated in a bonfire at a garbage dump, and their ashes thrown in a river. The protests have led to mass cancellation this week in the hotels of Acapulco, the famous beach resort, ahead of a long holiday weekend. On Tuesday, hundreds of protesters scuffled with riot police and burned PRI offices in Chilapacinco. The search for the missing has extended to dense bushland surrounding Iguala, with federal police conducting air and land searches with helicopters and all-terrain vehicles. The disappearance of the students has been the toughest challenge yet to face Pena Nieto, who took office 2 years ago, vowing to restore order in Mexico, where about 100,000 people have died in violence linked to organized crime since 2007.
And finally, to the Middle East. In Afghanistan, an outspoken female Afghan lawmaker survived a suicide bomb attack on her vehicle after suffering slight wounds. But 3 civilian bystanders were killed and at least 10 wounded.
The bombing was the latest to target members of the US-backed Afghan government, which is fighting a fierce onslaught by the IS militants. 3 civilians were killed by the suicide attack and more than 10 wounded. The Taliban's government was toppled by US-backed Afghan forces after it refused to hand over the Al-Qaeda planners of the 11th September 2001 attacks on the United States. Barakazai is a member of the team Ghani appointed to help choose a new cabinet after he took office in the late September after a lengthy and bitter dispute over election results with rival Abdullah, who finally ended up in a coalition government with him.
And with that, we come to the end of the bulletin on Africa this morning. Up next, we'll take a look at the leading stories in the dailies in Kenya in our segment Media Watch.